After successfully completing the mission, I became the male lead's white Moonlight. The system kept its promise, healed my terminal illness, wiped all traces of my existence, and sent me overseas. I thought we'd never meet again. But 6 years later, the system came knocking once more, this time asking me to play the role of a vicious supporting female. As the plane slowly descended, the familiar sight of the city's endless traffic and towering skyscrapers unfolded before me. I stared out the window and let out a long breath. If the system hadn't threatened to erase me completely, I would have never agreed to come back. After all, our breakup back then was downright ugly. He chased me all the way to the airport, eyes rimmed red, shouting my name over and over through the crowd, begging me not to leave. 49 times, each one filled with desperation. But even as my silhouette disappeared behind the security checkpoint, I never once looked back. Back then, he really did love me deeply. So much that even when I told him straight to his face that I was only with him for his money, he didn't care. I sold off everything he'd ever given me, even the ring, and boarded a plane for another country. Before I blocked him on WeChat, I left him with one last message. Sorry, young Master Luke. It was just a game. You really took it seriously? In that airport, the skinny boy hunched over, on the verge of collapse, hot tears streaming down his face one by one. At the time, the only person who had stood by him through the rumors and scorn surrounding his illegitimate birth had now abandoned him too. The only light in those dark days had suddenly gone out. The moment was caught on camera by a bystander and posted online. The tag, "Boy in Black begs at airport for one more chance," went viral instantly. Luke's identity was exposed that same day, a young master from the elite Beijing circle, wearing nothing but a leather bracelet worth tens of thousands. Even now, 6 years later, people are still posting comparison videos of him. The disheveled and broken boy from the airport grew into a powerful figure in Beijing's elite. Sharp features, cold eyes, the very picture of dominance. Underneath one of the clips reads, "Does the girl from the airport regret it now?" Regret? Maybe. If our breakup had been even a little less disastrous, this mission wouldn't be so damn tricky. Target Jessica, currently located at KK Bar. Host, proceed immediately to initiate mocking and degradation using your white Moonlight status. Jessica? That rich daddy's girl from senior year who threw herself at Luke. After she found out I was his girlfriend, she came at me, directly ripped my test papers, splashed water on me, and tried to force me to break up with him. I gave a half smile. System, your taste in female leads is seriously trash. Host, just complete the task. The system's tone was as cold as ever. Midnight at the bar was loud and chaotic. Wearing a black mermaid dress, I swayed with the rhythm, blending into the crowd of dancing youth. Even with heavy makeup, the woman across the room spotted me almost immediately. Her gaze tracked my every move. I flipped my hair back and turned toward her, revealing my face. Before long, 2 men in black suits pulled me out of the dance floor. "Well, look who it is, Jennifer." Her voice dripped with mockery. "Didn't think you had the guts to show up." She swirled her glass and sized me up with that same arrogant look from back in the day. I rubbed my wrist and sat across from her, eyes sparkling with amusement. "What? Scared I'll steal Luke back?" "Scared? Of what?" She snorted like I'd just cracked a joke, lips curling higher. "You should be the one scared. You conned him for his money and played with his heart. He looked for you for years and never found you. Now you show up on your own? You know better than anyone. Luke despises lies and betrayal." "So tell me," she sneered, "how do you think a guy like him, vindictive to the core, is going to make you pay?" Her eyes gleamed with cruel delight. "Oh, maybe. But it doesn't change the fact that I was his white Moonlight." I said it casually, and the smile on her lips faltered. "That was in the past," she snapped. "Still counts as the past." I shot back, clinging to that thin thread. Music pounded around us as we locked eyes. My smile deepened. She finally cracked, leaned in close, teeth clenched. "Jennifer, do you have no shame? You've been gone for years. Luke belongs to me now." Her voice was rising. "He loves me now. Me! I'm warning you, stop dreaming!" She whipped out her phone and jabbed her finger at a headline, bold and highlighted in red. Top-tier actress Jessica seen getting cozy with Beijing elite dating rumors swirl. The photos were grainy silhouettes, a man and woman dining, walking side by side, entering a car one after the other. I clicked in. The blurry side profile was zoomed in. "No doubt about it. It's Luke," she said, smug as hell. "Never said it wasn't," I replied coolly. She scoffed and pulled up another picture from her album. Looked like a family gathering. The woman stood beside the man, her head resting gently on his broad shoulder, grinning sweetly. I glanced at it, then pushed the phone back, leaned into the chair, fingers laced over my knee, index finger slowly rubbing. 6 years had stripped away any trace of boyhood. In a sleek black suit, he looked cold, commanding his gaze at the camera like ice. He'd always been distant and reserved, not easy to approach. But back then, when I touched that little mole near his eye, his lashes would flutter. He'd let me do whatever I wanted, never pulling away. Now, he radiated pressure, suffocating and sharp. A Luke I barely recognized. Maybe the system sensed my thoughts. It spoke up, detached, as always. "No one stays the same forever, host. He can't possibly remember everything you two had. The white moonlight thing is just a front now. Use it. Complete your task." I paused, downed my drink, and smiled. He might not remember everything, but he sure as hell won't forget all of it either. Just as I stood to leave, the girl behind me jumped up, yelling, "Jennifer, he loves me now!" "I'm telling you, stay away or he'll skin you alive." So stubborn. I stopped, turned around, and smiled. Well, tough luck. I just signed with Luke's company. Looks like we'll be seeing each other every day. "Jennifer, you're doing this on purpose." "You bet I am. I haven't forgotten what you did back then just because you had money. Guess what? Who do you think's going to get the company's resources now? You or me?" I was still smiling. Her face went pale with rage as she grabbed her drink, ready to throw it at me. But in the next second, my steps came to an abrupt halt. For a brief moment, it felt like even the bar's music paused. I turned to follow her gaze, and amid the noise, a blurry yet unmistakably familiar figure froze in my vision. The man was wearing a long black coat, still unbuttoned. Wind had tousled the hair over his forehead, like he had rushed straight here from some meeting. Countless eyes fell on him, but he stood there, unmoving, staring only at me. Through the crowd and the chaos, it felt surreal, like a dream. After all this time, I figured he'd hate me, but I didn't see any hatred or bitterness in his eyes, just something buried deep, swelling and unspoken. "Hey, long time no see." In the end, I broke the silence first, smiling as I greeted him. We ended up having dinner together. The whole time, Jessica kept piling food onto Luke's plate, doing everything she could to show how close they were now. But Luke barely spoke. His jaw was tight, face expressionless, but his gaze was restrained and burning, with a hint of cautious longing. It was jarring to see that look on someone like him. When dessert came, Jessica laughed behind her hand as soon as she saw the 3 golden orange mousses. "Oh no, Ajo, you still ordered my favorite." I remember Jennifer's allergic to mango, isn't she? Her smug eyes landed on me. But before she could gloat, the server placed a separate plate in front of me. "Miss, your chocolate mousse." "Hmm?" I looked up at the man across from me. "It's for you," he said softly, his eyes lingering on me, quietly expectant. "It used to be my favorite flavor." I paused, then smiled politely. "Thank you, Mr. Luke. Next task. Sow discord between the male and female lead. and steal the female-led script. In the bathroom, I touched up my makeup in the mirror and said in surprise, "That's it?" The system paused. "Host, you'd better have a clear understanding of who you are. Don't forget how you left him in the first place." I dabbed my lips with fresh lipstick and smiled. "System, I think you're underestimating just how devastating a white moonlight can be." In the mirror, those long, cold eyes suddenly met mine. "Something you need?" I tucked the lipstick back into my bag and turned around calmly. He pressed his lips together, silently staring at me, his gaze as dark as ink. His Adam's apple bobbed like he wanted to speak, but no words came out. I gave a light laugh and called his name casually. "Luke." That rising intonation, exactly the same as years ago, made the hand at his side clench tightly, his knuckles white. I just stood there, smiling faintly, poised and relaxed as I watched him. "System, you see that? A white moonlight doesn't need to do anything. Just standing here is enough to tear his heart to shreds." The system was silent for a long moment, then said, "Host, you're cruel. And the ones who designed this task, weren't you cruel too?" I looked down calmly. This broken story, they insisted on finishing it with the worst possible ending. They wanted him to watch everything he once had collapse into tragedy. I don't remember exactly how we started kissing, just the feeling of breath and eye contact crashing into waves of emotion in his eyes. The next moment, he pinned me against the wall, his kiss fierce, desperate, punishing. When I was nearly breathless, he suddenly softened, his touch turning gentle, almost reverent. Eventually, he held me tightly, forehead resting in the crook of my neck, breathing me in like he was broken and vulnerable beyond words. My heart trembled slightly. I felt the faintest warmth on my shoulder. I looked at his slightly messy hair and couldn't help reaching out to smooth it. "I've got a room on the top floor. Want to come up?" "Yeah." His voice was muffled and hoarse. The lights in the room were off. I kissed his neck, his collarbone. He couldn't take it, collapsed onto the couch, panting. I nipped at his earlobe, playful and confident. "Luke, you like that?" He froze for a second. He realized I was using him, using our past to manipulate him. His expression darkened. But just as he was about to push me away, I kissed him again, slipping past his teeth, slowly claiming territory. Gradually, the strength left the hand he was going to push me with. "What do you want?" His voice was low and hoarse, thick with restrained emotion. His eyes were still red at the corners, his big hand resting carefully on my lower back. I thought he'd ask me where I'd been all these years, why I never came back, why I lied, or maybe try to settle old scores, say something harsh. But he didn't. He chose to ask about now what I wanted from him. I propped my chin on one hand, fingers idly tapping his abs, smiling. "The lead role in Jessica's show. You know I don't like her." "Host, you really shouldn't be this blunt." The system finally couldn't hold back. "No one would say yes under these circumstances." "Oh, really?" I looked at the man in front of me with those pretty, smiling eyes. He pressed his lips together, locking eyes with me. I could feel his chest rising and falling, the brush of his breath between us. 1 second, 2, 3. "Well?" I asked. The walls around my heart were crumbling fast. His throat moved. He looked at me deeply and rasped out a single word. "Okay." The smile on my lips deepened. "Thank you, Mr. Luke." I straightened up, ready to get off him, casually adding, "System, maybe next time don't interrupt me during a task. It's embarrassing when your predictions." A pair of strong hands suddenly wrapped around my waist. Caught off guard, I fell right back onto his lap. "Jennifer." He buried his face in my neck, inhaling deeply. I froze. My mind went blank for a second. His low, muffled voice came from my neck, filled with helplessness and a painful kind of longing. He said, "Please don't play with me anymore. I can't take it." He was the one who drove me home. The car stopped smoothly in front of a hotel. Just as I unbuckled my seatbelt to get out, he suddenly reached out and grabbed me. "You're staying here? Why?" He rolled down the window, glanced at the flickering hotel sign missing a letter and the empty front desk. "It's not safe. This place had problems a few years ago." The dim light from the car ceiling lit the messy strands of his hair. He looked at me, his throat bobbing. "Come stay at my place, okay?" I didn't answer, just followed his gaze out the window. The old wooden windows creaked in the wind. There wasn't a soul around. Because the system had rushed me to the bar straight off the plane, I didn't have time to pick properly and just found the nearest hotel to drop off my luggage. It had seemed fine during the day, but at night, it suddenly felt eerie. "It's fine," I swallowed hard. "I checked it out earlier. It's livable." I'd already made up my mind. The moment I got out of the car, I'd bolt upstairs, lock the door behind me, and bury myself under the covers. Just as I reached for the car door handle, he said suddenly, "I think I just saw a woman in a white dress, hair all over the place, floating past." Seeing me freeze, he added casually, "She looked like she was hovering." After a brief moment of hesitation, I decisively let go of the door handle and leaned back into the seat. At 1 a.m, Luke's villa was still brightly lit. I was just marveling at how lavish rich people lived when I opened the door and saw a well-maintained woman sitting on the sofa. She was dressed in elegant designer clothes, light makeup, and had high, prominent cheekbones. She looked vaguely familiar. "Why are you back so late?" The sharp tone reminded me this was Luke's mother. Her eyes landed on him, then shifted to me, full of disdain and arrogance. Luke silently stepped in front of me, blocking her gaze completely. Mrs. Dawson stirred her coffee slowly, frowning, her tone laced with condescension. "Ajo, I thought you'd grown up. Jessica already told me about tonight." "Mother," Luke cut her off coldly. "I believe I told you long ago not to interfere in my life, especially my relationships. What are you trying to pull now?" His cool and cutting voice made her face change instantly. She slammed the coffee cup down on the table. "Luke, what kind of attitude is that? After all these years raising you, is this how you speak to me? I should have never brought you back, should have left you and your mother to starve on the streets." Her piercing voice drilled into my ears. I looked down uncomfortably. Yes, Luke was his father's illegitimate child. The family needed an heir for its vast business empire. If all the legitimate children hadn't died young, Mrs. Dawson would have never agreed to bring Luke home. She never liked him. She was the one who spread the word about his illegitimacy, which led to him spending his entire youth shunned and whispered about. Back then, he rarely spoke. I'd say 10 things, and he might not respond to even one. People laughed at me for hanging around him every day. They said I was playing some CEO love story, thinking I could melt the ice with love. But only I knew Luke wasn't ice. He'd quietly listen to me talk, bring me chocolate mousse every weekend, wait silently for me to hold his hand during lab and psych classes, and when he heard about my health, he offered up all his money without hesitation. I didn't take it. I smiled through my tears and told him, my voice trembling, that I had a congenital heart condition. It wasn't curable. No one knew when it might suddenly stop. All I could do was live every second to the fullest. The system had given me a second chance. Crash! A vase shattered on the floor. Mrs. Dawson stood there, chest heaving, her face drained of color from rage. Luke remained calm, brushing imaginary dust off his shoulder. "Mother, have you forgotten? My father's no longer the head of the Dawson family. If you keep throwing things around, don't expect me to tolerate it." "Luke! Enough. This is the last time." Luke cut her off coolly. "If you set up another dinner with Jessica or hire paparazzi again, don't blame me for cutting off the last bit of goodwill I've held on to. And the Chi family? I'll burn that bridge too." So that's what all those photos Jessica had were about. "Everything I do is for your own good, for this family's future." You don't understand anything. Is that so? I don't believe the Dawson family is so weak that it needs a marriage alliance to stay afloat. Realizing she could no longer control her so-called son, she snapped and turned her wrath on me. I knew something was off. It's because that slut came back. You think you're worthy. Here we go again. I never lost an argument with her before. I opened my mouth, ready to let loose, but before I could say a word, Luke's sharp voice rang out. Enough, Mrs. Dawson's eyes suddenly welled with tears. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't speak. His pupils were dark, his hand slowly clenching at his side. He stared at her and spoke each word with cold precision. Mother, I told you not to insult her in front of me ever again. He pulled a card from his suit pocket and tossed it on the table in front of her. Maybe it's time for you to take a vacation anywhere but here. After sending Mrs. Dawson off, Luke took me to the master bedroom on the second floor. The room was spacious, with a delicate vanity and a walk-in closet. The soft bed was neatly made with 2 pillows, like it was waiting for a woman to move in. I stood at the door, hesitant. You live here alone? Yeah, alone for a long, long time. He leaned against the doorframe, eyes downcast. The antique wall clock pointed precisely to 2 a.m. Sleepiness hit me hard. I yawned and mumbled as I turned away. Got a guest room. Set one up for me. He grabbed my wrist. I paused and looked back. He stared at me earnestly, the fringe over his forehead falling slightly. His voice soft. Can you sleep here instead? In the stillness between our breaths, the yearning in his eyes slowly surged, overwhelming, drowning. My gaze flickered. I looked away and tried to tug my wrist free, but he only gripped it tighter. His dark eyes locked on mine, unblinking and stubborn. I couldn't pull away. Luke, I said, and the moment the word left my mouth, his grip loosened instantly. He turned his eyes aside, long lashes falling to cover the emotion in his gaze. Sorry. His voice was low, raspy. Watching the expression on his face, my chest tightened inexplicably. As I watched him slowly turn to leave, I suddenly called out, Luke. He stopped and looked back. Under his gaze, I took a deep breath and said softly, Forget it. No need to prepare a guest room. I'll sleep here. The moon outside the window was especially bright. As I lazily flipped through a book by the bed, I suddenly felt the mattress dip beside me. He'd sat down. What are you reading? His voice was low as he leaned closer, carrying the warmth of the bathroom and the fresh scent of body wash. Your book? It was a book about curing insomnia. A gift from someone. Oh. I flipped through a few pages absent-mindedly, then put it back on the nightstand. After turning off the lights, the only sound in the quiet room was our breathing. After a while, I couldn't help but ask, Luke, do you get insomnia too? Sometimes. Oh, so what do you think about when you can't sleep? I think about sleeping. I burst out laughing. The night breeze lifted the light curtains gently. The one who said he had insomnia fell asleep quickly, while I, unusually, couldn't sleep. His arms were wrapped too tightly around me. I managed to push him away, only for him to cling back on. Whatever. I took a deep breath. The man behind me held me close and slept soundly. I lay on my side, staring blankly at the place where night and day met in the distance. Host. The system's voice suddenly broke the midnight silence. You shouldn't get too... System. I cut it off. You're kind of a pervert, aren't you? Watching people kiss. Watching people sleep. Do you even know what 18 plus means? System. For once, it had nothing to say. Jessica's show was based on a major IP, and swapping the female lead caused a huge uproar on Weibo. What the hell? Who even is Jennifer? Never heard of her. This is wild. And nobody snatched a top actress's script. This has to be a first. She must have found a sugar daddy. Otherwise, how could someone like her possibly land this? Everyone knows Jessica's rich and her boyfriend's the company's CEO. How could she lose out? Didn't they already clarify? The CEO's got nothing to do with her. Within half a day, the tag, Jessica loses her role, shot to the top of the trending list. Half the comments were dragging me, the other half sympathizing with Jessica. I scrolled through them idly before setting my phone down. System. What's the next task? During filming, slap Jessica, start a conflict, and publicly expose her history of school bullying to the media. The goal is to spark a wave of controversy around the female lead. I had taken over as the new female lead, while Jessica, unwilling to let go of the project, had been demoted to second female lead. I was assigned the best agent in the industry, plus a full team assistant, bodyguard, makeup artist, the works. I even had my own dressing room, the kind only A-listers got. I sat under the AC reading the script. The very first scene was a slap, apparently. The second female lead had slept with the male lead, so the female lead had her dragged over and confronted her. Instead of backing down, the second lead bragged and said she'd replace the female lead sooner or later. Enraged, the lead slapped her repeatedly. Honestly, the role fit Jessica's personality to a T. System. If I slap her this many times, there won't be blood, right? The female-led halo isn't just for show. Host. Worry more about yourself. Okay, fine. Jessica had brought a stunt double, but the director said for close-up scenes, doubles weren't allowed. Watching her kneel in humiliation in front of me, I couldn't help but want to laugh. The first slap landed, and Jessica immediately exploded. Jennifer! What the hell? Weren't we doing stage slaps? I blinked innocently. Sorry, I don't know how to act. She held it in, mindful of the rolling cameras. Director, let's do another take. Smack! The second slap came with a gust of wind. It even shifted her hairstyle. I thought about it, I said seriously. Real hits look more authentic. Stage slaps just don't cut it. She couldn't take it anymore. Grabbing my collar, she shoved me against the wall, eyes blazing. Jennifer, do you know who I am? Do you think I won't call my bodyguards right now and deal with you? Remember how pathetic you were in that alley? Jessica. I cut her off with a smile. You really haven't changed a bit. The cameraman, ever sharp, swung the lens toward us. Jessica had always played the role of the proud, self-assured rich girl. Her fans called her cool and classy. I wondered how they'd feel knowing their idol was once the mastermind behind school bullying. Ignoring her furious glare, I let my bodyguard pull her away. Facing the camera, I calmly listed everything she'd done back then, how she targeted girls who were pretty and quiet, how even walking past her too slowly was reason enough for her to pounce. The incidents once buried by the school resurfaced, another round of Weibo trending. Jessica lost every brand endorsement. Variety shows started editing her out. The entire internet turned against her. A few of the girls she'd bullied posted long statements, years of silent pain, finally vindicated by time. The production had to recast the second female lead, and filming was paused. That evening, Luke said he'd pick me up. The crew had a car, and my assistant could have driven me, but he insisted. At dusk, the sky turned a soft rose purple. A sleek, luxurious car rolled to a stop in front of me, tail lights glowing faintly. "Why are you driving yourself?" I asked, as I opened the door and got in. He wore a black shirt, sleeves rolled twice, effortlessly elegant. A cool-toned watch hugged his pale wrist. He looked like he'd been carefully styled. "The driver's on leave," he said flatly. "Oh." He turned slightly, pulling a sleek black box from the glove compartment. It was tied with a pretty ribbon. "What's this?" "A gift for you." I blinked, opened the box, and laughed. "It's not a holiday. Why are you giving me a gift?" "Too much money. Nowhere to spend it. Is that okay?" "Me." He pressed his lips together and looked at me sideways. 1 second. 2. 3. His fingers slowly curled. His eyes dimmed. I didn't know why, but I suddenly felt a little guilty. In the end, I reached out. "Fine. Just this once." He placed the gift in my palm, along with a silver key. What's this? Key to the room at the end of the second floor. After dinner, Luke got a call from his assistant about an urgent matter at the company. He didn't make it back that night. Under the moonlight, I stared at the key on the table for a long, long time. I inserted the key. The locked door at the end of the second floor creaked open. Dust drifted through the air. The chandelier sparkled down, momentarily dazzling my eyes. Inside was a massive European-style cabinet, and every single compartment was filled with gifts. Valentine's Day, Quiche Festival, birthdays, Christmas, New Year's Eve. Each gift box bore a beautiful golden tag with a short message. Jennifer, the moon is so bright tonight for Cheesy. Did you look up? Jennifer, roses don't last long, so I turned every petal into a keepsake when you come back. You can see them. It's snowing, Jennifer. Is it cold where you are? Jennifer, Happy New Year. These exquisite, expensive, heartfelt gifts lay quietly in place, waiting for their owner to open them with her own hands. Through those gifts, I could almost see Luke, dressed in a suit, standing there under scattered lights, staring blankly at a room full of presents all alone. In the center of the cabinet sat the ring I once sold, sealed under a clear glass dome. He had bought it back and displayed it here, day after day, night after night. My chest suddenly ached. My fingertips trembled as they touched the glass. Plop! A tear hit the floor. I reached up, my face was already ice cold. A wave of emotion surged from my chest, overwhelming and suffocating. Back then, I think I truly, deeply loved someone. System, did I? I hadn't even finished asking when the system answered. To help you start over, we erased part of your emotional memory. So during all those lonely nights, only he was left drowning in longing, aching for someone far away. Host, this place doesn't belong to you. You'll have to leave eventually. I didn't respond. I just stared blankly at the gifts, tears falling one after another. Host, the system spoke again. Got it. I took a deep breath, forced myself to calm down, then stepped out of the room. The cabinet full of gifts slowly disappeared behind the door. Click. Locked. A week later, filming resumed. Knowing I wasn't good enough to carry the lead, I stepped down and took a small supporting role instead. Luke's villa was in a mountainside neighborhood, way too far from the set. After a late shoot, my assistant booked me a nearby hotel. At 1 a.m., someone knocked on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw a familiar figure disheveled, travel-worn, eyes full of tension and helplessness. It's late. What's wrong? I stepped aside to let him in. The moment the door shut, he pulled me into a fierce hug, as if trying to melt me into his body. He said, Jennifer, I couldn't find you. His voice was hoarse and low, trembling. The wind blew in through the curtains, and moonlight spilled over our embracing shadows. I asked softly, didn't I message you that I wasn't going home? I was afraid you were lying. I paused, then smiled. Well, now you see me, standing here safe and sound. Yeah, you're not leaving again, right? He held me tighter, speaking so softly, like he feared shattering a dream. I kept smiling but couldn't say a word to promise him anything. The moonlight was heavy, and the night air was chilly. I tilted my head back and drank a glass of red wine. He grabbed my wrist. Your body. I'm fine now. I smiled and finished the last half glass. Got treated overseas? No. I met a special doctor in a dream. Leaning against the railing, I gazed at the sparkling city lights in the distance. You could say, they're the master of this world. They said they could cure my heart condition, but there was a condition. What condition? To leave you. I turned to look at him. Do you believe that? My reflection was crystal clear in his deep eyes. I pressed my lips together, then suddenly smiled. I'm joking. But he reached out and placed his hand over my heart. Thump, thump, thump. Steady and strong, in the silence of night, my heart was beating full of life. After a long pause, he blinked away the sting in his eyes and said, "Stubborn and sincere, I believe you. But can we go back to how things were?" "How?" "Closer. Don't push me away, don't avoid me. Please?" His gaze pleaded with me. I stared at him for a long while. My heart softened, just for a moment. "Host, you'll have to leave sooner or later." "Yeah, sooner or later. And some things, if I didn't do them now, I'd never get the chance." After his long, anxious wait, I finally smiled and whispered, "Okay," then stood on tiptoe and hugged him. The next day, he drove me to set. As I got out and turned to leave, I saw he was still standing there. I looked back, blinked, puffed out my cheeks, and blew him 2 exaggerated kisses. "Did you catch them?" I asked. He looked stunned for a second. Then his lips curved up uncontrollably. He reached out and mimed catching something in the air. "Caught them!" The system couldn't hold back. "Host, that was childish. Mind your business." I huffed and walked away in heels, in a damn good mood. In the shadows, someone secretly lifted a phone and recorded the moment me in the luxury car. The clip hit the trending list fast, and the comments were all attacks. Someone was clearly behind it. Knew it. Must be some rich guy's mistress. No wonder she snatched the role from my goddess. Exactly. She has 0 achievements, and now she's landing endorsements left and right. She's clearly sleeping her way in. Endorsements? I'd forgotten about those. Probably my agent's doing. I'd only been in the industry for half a month, and they already packed my schedule for the next 6. Said they were determined to make me a star. The topic quickly dropped off Weibo, likely the company stepping in to suppress it. But sharp-eyed users noticed the car in the video looked a lot like one owned by a certain Beijing elite. They even compared it to the man and vehicle seen in Jessica's old clip. Then, right on cue, Jessica posted, "Stealing someone else's man and still got the nerve?" Chaos exploded. Gossip, hungry netizens cooked up a whole scandal. The internet was buzzing. After work, reporters cornered me. "Miss Jennifer, can you comment on your relationship?" Microphones shoved into my face, everyone staring at the man beside me, eyes burning with tabloid frenzy. I took Luke's hand first, smiled brightly, and said seriously, "He's my boyfriend." His Adam's apple bobbed slightly. Then his fingers slid between mine, locking tightly. He leaned in and calmly told the mic, "Jennifer's always been my girlfriend. I'd appreciate it if certain people stopped deluding themselves." The comments on Weibo flipped dramatically. Someone dug up the footage of that girl at the airport. That girl was me, the white moonlight of a Beijing elite. The comment section was flooded with shippers, moved that such a deeply devoted man actually existed. Jessica, meanwhile, deleted her post in the middle of the night. System, are there any more tasks? Jessica's career was basically over now. I heard she'd become volatile, smashing things at home every day. The vicious supporting role's mission is essentially complete. I lay on the bed in silence for a long time before asking softly, "So I'm leaving?" "Yes. Once this drama wraps." I turned over, buried my face in the pillow, and said, "You guys are pretty good at finishing what you start." Luke got into bed carefully. I shifted, then reached out and hugged him. He froze for a moment, then lowered his head slightly and whispered, "I thought you were asleep." "Not yet. I was waiting for you." I rested my hand over the warmth of his chest and spoke carefully. "Luke, I've been thinking about quitting the industry. Showbiz is too exhausting. My body can't take it." He didn't even hesitate. "You can?" "Really?" I hadn't expected him to agree so quickly. "Really?" My surprise showed all over my face. I started pecking his cheeks like a woodpecker, full of giggles. He couldn't help but laugh, rolled over to pin me down, his eyes and smile brimming with joy. "Won't it be a hassle?" "Not at all." I looked at his face, tracing his features with my fingers. Of course it would be a hassle, so many scripts and endorsements already signed. The penalty fees alone would be massive. Luke, is there anything you really want to do? He thought about it seriously. Lots. Like what? He didn't answer. His gaze darkened, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly as a flush spread to his ears. I understood instantly, and my face warmed. All right then, let's start with the first thing, I whispered. The lights went out. In the darkness, I leaned in and kissed him first. I looked up 100 little things couples should do online, and picked a few we could actually manage. We went to the movies. During a ridiculous scene that had me laughing so hard I couldn't sit straight, he looked at me from the side, eyes smiling too. We watched fireworks together. As the dazzling bursts lit up the sky, I bowed my head, clasped my hands, and made a wish for his health and happiness. We went to the amusement park. At the top of the Ferris wheel, with the city lights sparkling below, I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him tenderly. We went to see flowers, the sea, the clouds atop a mountain, and the first light of dawn. We watched brilliant sunsets. We even visited our old high school and found our old classroom. It really hasn't changed at all, I said, brushing my hand over the familiar scratches on the desk. Every desk was arranged exactly as it had been. I had it sealed off, he said, pulling out a chair and sitting down, staring at the blackboard. Every time I missed you, I came here and sat for a while. I sat beside him, lost in thought. Suddenly, he turned to me, eyes burning. This is the first time I've turned my head and actually seen you here. Our eyes met. He smiled first, and I followed. I knew he liked holding hands, hugging, kissing. He liked me close. Filming was nearly wrapped. In those final days, I tried my best to give him all the affection he wanted. Late at night, I watched his profile as he slept. Maybe it was because he'd been smiling so much lately. He even slept with a faint smile on his lips. I reached out. Just as my fingers touched his cheek, the system finally spoke again. Host, a final reminder. Don't lose yourself in this relationship. My hand hovered in the air for a long time before I pulled it back. I lay down again and picked up my phone. I stared at the flight booking page for a long time, then paid. On the drama's final day, I toasted every crew member with a smile and drank far too much. I figured if I got drunk enough, I wouldn't have to think about anything. When Luke showed up, I threw myself into his arms, overjoyed. But this time, he didn't smile like he always did. What's wrong? I teased, pinching his face, trying to make him smile. He picked me up and carried me to the car. As he leaned over to buckle me in, his gaze darkened. He stared at me in the dark for a long time. His throat moved painfully. Why did you book a flight? I froze. So he'd found out after all. I traced circles on his chest with my fingertip, feigning drunken playfulness. I just wanted to travel a bit. His expression crumbled. He looked at me like he was treading on glass. Can you not go? I lowered my head, avoiding his eyes. Just as he was about to say something else, I groaned and pushed him away, slumping back into the seat, head turned the other way. He stood outside the car for a long time before finally getting in. The cabin was silent and dark. He buried his face in the steering wheel, breathing deeply, his hair slightly disheveled. After a while, he leaned over to me. Jennifer. He looked down, gently brushing my lips with his finger. His voice was hoarse, like talking to himself. If you leave, what am I supposed to do? The only answer was silence and the soft sound of breathing. Slowly, he moved his hand over my heart, still beating steadily beneath his palm. Suddenly, something cold hit the back of my hand. Plop. A tear spread across my skin. In those final days, Luke grew visibly quiet. He cancelled many engagements just to stay by my side, cherishing every second we had left. On the day I left, he carefully asked if he could take me to the airport. Okay. I smiled and said yes. The airport was as chaotic and rushed as it had been all those years ago. We both knew this might be goodbye forever. I dragged my suitcase forward, step by step, the distance between us growing. People passed between us. The loudspeakers echoed overhead. Jennifer! I paused. Back then, he'd called my name like that 249 times. This time, I turned around. I saw him standing there, looking at me through the noise and the crowd. He gave me a messy, bittersweet smile. Be happy over there, okay? And if you ever want to come back, don't forget to find me. I'll be waiting. That room, it's full of gifts I picked for you. Next time you come back, you have to open them. They've waited too long. So have I. He looked at me with a smile, eyes brimming with tears, just as sincere and fiery as they were back then. My fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. Huge teardrops welled up at the corners of my eyes, ready to fall. I love you. His lips still curled in a smile, eyes slightly red, voice hoarse and full of sincerity. Always. My chest burned, and tears started streaming down uncontrollably. The system's countdown was ticking faster and faster. I heard his voice again, hot, honest, and desperate. Jennifer, I love you. Always. I kept wiping my face, but the more I wiped, the more tears fell, until I couldn't even see the road ahead. In the final 3 seconds of the system's countdown, I passed through security. The plane lifted off. The city below grew smaller and smaller. System, how long does the application process take on your end? Not bad. How long, exactly? Could be a few months. I stared out at the clouds outside the plane and sniffled, my voice hoarse. All right, thanks for the trouble. Before I left, I had asked the system if there was a way for me to stay. It said I'd have to submit a written request to the higher-ups. Your story with the male lead is clearly more vivid and complicated, so your chances of approval are fairly high. System, didn't expect you to actually be useful for once. Obviously. The system sounded annoyed. Days cycled on. I still went to work and came home alone, ate meals by myself, watched movies by myself. Sometimes I'd space out, staring at my own reflection in store windows. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep, my thoughts inevitably drifting back to those deep, fragile eyes, full of longing and reluctance to let go. All the torment he once endured from missing me, I experienced every bit of it too. I copied his ways, preparing gifts for him on every meaningful holiday, filling thick journals with all my longing, hoping to hand them to him myself when we met again. Seasons changed. Time moved on. The system finally brought good news 2 years later. System, could your efficiency get any worse? For once, the system didn't argue. It simply said, with rare sincerity, congratulations, host. I snorted but couldn't help the smile tugging at my lips. On a snowy winter day, I stepped into the nearest cafe. The number that had shown user not found, countless times finally connected. Hello? That familiar, low voice came through the receiver. I was silent for a moment, listening to the soft sound of his breathing and the tentative hope in his tone. Jennifer. I looked out at the bustling street beyond the window and slowly smiled. Yeah, Luke. I'm coming back.